Hello again, I'm Robert Fithen back with the Spiked Hair, talking about albums from 1983 going in chronological order as from when they were released, and just doing as many as I want, basically. Just keeping it fun. We are now in the month of February, and released on day 1 of February 1983 was this album from Journey called Frontiers. It's funny because I did a video months and months and months ago where I was talking about, getting older. And am I gonna, why do I keep getting records, which I've kind of stopped buying vinyl and buying music kind of, but, I need to listen to my collection. I mean, am I even going to be alive long enough to hear each one of these again, and that kind of thing? Do I need to start purging some stuff out of my collection? And one of the examples I used was Journey Frontiers. I'm like, am I ever going to need to listen to this album again? Probably not. And yet here I am listening again for this this series of 1983. Yeah, February 1st was when this was released. This is the one with Separate Ways, Worlds Apart. This is the one with Send Her My Love. And this is the one with Faithfully on it. And that's pretty much what I need from Journey. I need the greatest hits and maybe a couple of albums like Escape and maybe one like maybe Infinity, and that's about it. I'm not a huge Journey fan. I'm not a hater of Journey. They're just kind of right there. I played their singles on the radio over and over again in rock radio, and then again in the adult hits format, just Journey, 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 and they were always just kind of like something I wouldn't crank up. But then again, something I wouldn't turn off. They're right there mid. I mean, some of their stuff you might crank it. Like Don't Stop Believing's great, Any Way You Want It. They got some hits. Not a lot of my favorites are not on here. Faithfully is probably the best track on here to me. And so when you're a rock band and the ballad is the best song on the album, probably not that great of an album. Yeah, Faithfully, another one of those songs about being out on the road. Missing your sweetheart, I'm out on the road, I don't even know where I am, another city, another show. There were countless songs about that from rock bands in the 70s. When most people are not out on the road all the time and going city to city and missing the one, unless they're a truck driver or something like that. But yeah, so Journey Frontiers also, like I said, features Separate Ways, which has one of my favorite endings to any Journey song where he just screams, "No!" That's pretty cool. Yeah, Send Her My Love's kind of mid-level type of stuff. And then you have tracks on here like After the Fall and Chain Reaction, which got played on rock radio, sporadically here and there, very rarely. They're okay. Side B is pretty much completely forgettable to me. I mean, there's some great rock stuff, great rock guitar stuff on Edge of the Blade. Rubicon is a nice way to wrap things up, really energetic and whatever. Steve Perry's vocals, though, do get kind of old for me after listening to an entire album. This bombastic kind of, he's obviously an incredible vocalist, but just enough of that's enough, just the constant pouring out, soaring Steve Perry type vocals. After an album, I'm like, okay, I'm a little done with Steve Perry for a while. The title track on here, Frontiers, is a mess. They try to get this progressive rhythm bed going on and this odd time signature. I don't think it works for them at all. Most of side 2 is forgettable, like I said. So basically, I'm needing a greatest hits. And none of the album tracks on here stand out for me the way that something like Stone in Love or Just the Same Way or Feeling That Way Anytime. Those are great. Those are more rock radio tracks, not necessarily top 40 singles. But there's not a lot of that on this one. So again, I don't know if I'll ever listen to this again. Maybe if I do a video series about Journey or about album covers that are blue or something like that, maybe I will. But just know that this is 1983 CBS vinyl. And so you're going to get the inner groove distortion. You're going to get a little bit of sibilance. It's probably better to have this on CD, honestly. Or maybe a UK pressing or something like that. Because the CBS, Columbia, Epic, all those Portrait, the vinyl for that from 82 and early 83 is not great. And that's right where this falls. So Journey Frontiers, it's just your mid-level rock album. I'm going to give this 3 stars. So 1983 was right about the time a lot of the way out new wave kind of acts of the late 70s and really early 80s started kind of polishing things up, becoming less weird, maybe a little more corny, a little more quirky, and trying to break through in a commercial way. And I didn't realize this at the time, it was 1983, I was 10 years old. But enter Thompson Twins. Yeah, their second U.S. album is called Sidekicks. I didn't know anything off of it at the time. I heard some of these songs a little bit later on. I was introduced to the Thompson Twins with a song that would be on their next album called Into the Gap. The song was called Hold Me Now. And this thing showed up, I think, at the very tail end of 1983. The album came out in 84. But this thing was relentlessly on the radio. This kind of boring song, really not, new wave at all, or it was more like adult contemporary. It was this, hold me now, whoa, warm my heart, stay with me. It just dragged on and on, and it was played all the time. I don't know how many flight tickets and how much cocaine was involved in the promotional budget of this song, but it must have been a lot because it was on all the time. And I don't know anybody that really loved this song. I knew people who liked it, thought it was okay. I thought it was just kind of there. I don't know anybody that would be like, oh my God, it's that Hold Me Now song from Thompson Twins. Oh my God, I love it. You'd think this thing was like Ghostbusters or something, or like You Shook Me All Night Long or something when it came. No, it was just kind of there. And what was worse is every time this was played on the radio, because the video was on all the time too, on Friday night videos and all the video shows. The song was on the radio all the time, and every time this thing came on. It didn't matter if it was Casey Kasem nationwide or some local DJ, they said the same thing. Hey, they're the Thompson Twins, but there's 3 of them. Okay, here's their new hit song, Hold Me Now. Hey, it's the Thompson Twins, and there's 3 of them, and none of them are twins. Hey, it's the Casey Kasem, and it's the Thompson Twins now. I guess Casey Kasem really doesn't talk like that, but it's the Hot Driving 5 with the Thompson Twins. Hold me now. Hey, they're twins, but there's 3. Every time. It started to wear a little thin, to say the least. But anyway, that song's not even on this album. Enough about that. I first got familiar with a song on this album called Lies. Lies, 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 yeah. That's probably the best song on here. I heard that on this tape that I had at the time called Number One on the Streets. This had like dance mixes of bands. It had the dance mix of White Wedding on here. I think that's why I got it, because it's not really a dance mix. It's just the long version. It had Reflex, The Politics of Dancing, just all Hot in the City, all kinds of stuff on here. Number One on the Streets, yo, because when you're talking about the streets, you're definitely talking about the Thompson Twins. Hey, there's 3 of them. Anyway. So I knew Lies. I didn't know the other 2 singles at the time. We Are Detective and Love on Your Side. We Are Detective is quirky enough, I guess. It's okay. Love on Your Side is just boring. A lot of this album is just kind of there. There's tiny bits of highlights, not kind of flashes more than highlights, where, this song could be something. They ruined it. Like a song called Watching that features actually Grace Jones. I didn't realize that at the time. She's on there. That's kind of cool. And then they start counting left, right, left, right, left, right. And I don't get that, but like, what are you watching, a tennis match? Anyway, Thompson Twins, the whole album plays as like a springboard for like, this could go somewhere. Oh, this is not going anywhere. Love Lies Bleeding. It's not the Elton John song. It's their own song. It's really upbeat. That's a nice tune. You can dance to that. But overall, not enough highlights to really make this more than like a 2.5 star. Maybe if I'm being generous, a 3-star album. But you know what? With that stupid-ass Thompson Twins name, making all those DJs every time talk about there's 3 of them and they're the top. It gets 2 stars. How about that? 2 stars. This is the US version called Sidekicks. The UK version came out a month earlier called something in Sidekick, Steptoe or something. That's Sanford. I don't know what it's called. But it's the same album. The songs are just in different order. So, yeah. 10 Speed and... No, that's 10 Speed and Gumshoe. I don't know. Something in Sidekicks. Anyway, Thompson Twins. Hey, there's 3 of them! Back in the 60s and early 70s, a lot of bands would put out multiple albums every year. That kind of thing sort of died off by the time the 1980s rolled around. But I already talked about one band that, or at least a duo, that came out with 2 albums in 1983. They were Eurythmics, and so did Earth, Wind, and Fire. Yeah, the bands that start with E making it happen in 1983. Earth, Wind, and Fire came out with Power Light on February the 3rd. And I like some Earth, Wind, and Fire. I never got a chance to see them in concert. I really wanted to see them at one point because I didn't have a lot of concert experience with bands that had that full like brass section and you know 18 members on the stage or whatever. So I wanted to see them and never got a chance to. But Earth, Wind, and Fire. I like some of their songs. I like some of their albums. This one, not so much. It's okay. Starts off pretty strong. Fall in Love with Me. It starts off with the fire. You know, it's definitely upbeat. It's got a little bit of synth action in there for 1983, but it's not overpowering what you come for with Earth, Wind, and Fire. They definitely still got the whole funky horn section and the big beat and the great vocals from Maurice White and Philip Bailey. And so, Fall in Love with Me is a good way to start this. It goes right into the next song, Spread Your Love, which by the title it sounds like it's a ballad. It's not. It's the funkiest thing on here, especially with those funky vocals. Ow, 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 that kind of thing. And the music grooves a lot. And that's unfortunately about as good as the album gets. After that, it kind of takes a dip as far as my ears go. Once you get past the first side, which a lot of these R&B bands in the 70s, and not so much in the 80s, but mostly in the 70s, like the Isley Brothers, groups like that, they would have like the funky up-tempo, burning up the dance floor stuff on side 1, and then side 2 would be like the bedroom ballads. Side 2 for Earth, Wind, and Fire on Power Light seems to be more of like the smooth jazz side, not so much the baby-making music, but the ballads of, inspirational ballads. This thing called Miracles wraps it up. Not a big fan of that one. They got a track on here before that called Straight from the Heart. I think Straight from the Heart's actually on side 1, but those keyboards on there, that's a ballad with those 80s keyboards, those tender light rock. Not a fan of that kind of thing at all, so that's a part of it. They've also got tracks on here like Freedom of Choice, which that one, the music is so like leveled off and in the background. It's like the vocals are way up. The music is so backed off, it almost sounds incidental. Something Special is, like I said, like a smooth jazz type thing almost. So not a big fan of this particular Earth, Wind, and Fire album. Maybe they'll bring me back on the second one that they released in 1983. Of course, I'll get to that one later on. But this one is not going to be my go-to Earth, Wind, and Fire album. I'm going to stick with a lot of the 70s stuff where they get downright funky and they burn up, like I said, they burn up the dance floor. And they got the synchronized horns that just hit. And, of course, they always got the great vocals, like I mentioned. But something about Power Light, there's, the first couple tracks are okay. There's a little instrumental section at the end of side 1 that's like, oh, what's this? And then it just fades out. So, but yeah, not too much for me to get into on this one. I'm going to give Power Light from Earth, Wind, and Fire 2 stars, but we'll see what happens with the second album from 1983. So if you're a big fan of ska music, you probably know that the guys from the Specials formed a band called Fun Boy 3 in the early 80s, and in 1983 released the second album called Waiting. Now, I'm not a huge ska fan. I don't know a lot about it. I don't know a lot about the Specials. I know some of their songs, but was not familiar at all with Fun Boy 3. I'd heard the name before, but I wasn't really sure what they were all about. I had no idea that they were basically the Specials. Didn't know it was this kind of music, just heard the name over the years, and really glad that I got to check this album out. It's one of the things that I love about doing these deep dive series, is hearing this music that I'd never heard before, and just kind of heard about. It's been something that, I'll get around listening to it at one point, and then, 30 years go by and I still haven't heard it. So finally got to hear Waiting from the Fun Boy 3, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed this entire album. It is one of those things where it's a UK album and there's a different version in the US. It's not that different. It's basically they've just switched the sides. So side 1 of the UK is basically side 2 of the US album, with the exception of the last track on each side stays on the side it was on, if that makes any sense. So it starts off with a cover of the Go-Go's Our Lips Are Sealed. They have a completely different feel on their version of that. Theirs has a more like ominous feel to it. Like it's a little bit of a lower kind of key, and it's just this, it's a real different feel. It does not have this fun, upbeat go-go's flying down the, you know, California streets on in a convertible and the wind's blowing, and, or is that We Got the Beat? I don't know. Anyway, the video, but anyway, it's a completely different feel on that, but it totally works for them. But it's still not the best song on here. They've got plenty better stuff on this album. A lot of the lyrics have to do with political commentary, social commentary, the strife and struggle of being a weed farmer. You know, on the final track on side 1, the Farmyard Connection, they've got The More I See, The Less I Believe. That is just the, you know, the harrowing times of like wartime and the strife in the streets and the violence and everything, but it has this sort of upbeat sort of sound. So if you're just kind of listening to the music, you're missing the whole lyrical content, which is a complete contrast of that, but it completely works. So there's a lot of great kind of commentary in here. Some of it still works today. Some of it works if you change some of the specifics, like instead of, you know, going on about, hey, I've got my leather pants and my kung fu shoes. I'm so cool. Just change that to whatever the cool guys think that they're wearing these days that makes them cool, you know, and a kind of a satire on that whole thing. Side 2 starts off with Murder, She Said. The theme to the Miss Marple mysteries, the Agatha Christie thing, a little piano, it's just really quirky stuff, which actually I believe, well, it would start off side 1 of the UK release. So I'm not sure if this works better as the start to the whole album or as like a quirky kind of intermission type thing to begin side 2. I think it can work either way or whatever. Like I said, I listened to the US version, so I probably should have listened to the UK version, but most of the albums, especially the ones that I have, obviously I'm more familiar with the US ones, so I try to keep it consistent and listen to the US versions of all these. But the one you stream is actually, I believe, the UK, no matter what country you're in. So great music throughout this. Like I said, a lot of great lyrics on here. They definitely keep it interesting with the different angles, different situations of life that they're singing about, and the music is fully realized. Great melodies. It doesn't really sound like ska stuff, which is probably why they formed this band, because they wanted to do something different than what they were doing with the specials. But it totally works for me. I am going to give Waiting from Funboy 3 4 stars, and it's another one of those albums, if I ever see this out somewhere, which I don't believe I've ever actually seen this album anywhere, but if I do, now I know what it is, and I will definitely be picking this up, unless it's, you know, something crazy like $65 or something like that. I'll just continue to stream it if that's the case. 4 stars. One thing about doing a deep dive into 1983 is I get to explore another Echo and the Bunnymen album that I'd never heard before. Now, I was not that familiar with this band. I've explained this in another video where I found one of their records and really liked it. That I was not a big fan of theirs because I think I'd been exposed to all the wrong songs, Lips Like Sugar and Bring On the Dancing Horses and things like that I didn't care for, so I never really explored them further. This album, called Porcupine, that was released on the 4th of February, is actually pretty good as well. I really enjoyed this. It opens with a song called The Cutter, which is just really spacious and really fills the room. Got a lot of sounds going on at the same time. It's this almost bombast sound that I was not expecting from Echo and the Bunnymen, and has the strings, has, of course, Ian McCullough's vocals, has that guitar playing that kind of sounds a little bit like U2, or maybe U2 sound a little bit more like Echo and the Bunnymen. That comes up again on another song later on. But this first track really just comes right out of the gate and just, like I said, fills the room, and very nicely done. Everything is mixed together really nicely. Second track after that, called Breaking the Back of Love. Very lively, very upbeat, but the lyrics have that contrast to where, you know, they're not exactly happy. A lot of, you know, self-exploration, self-doubt going on. Even self-doubt even literally called that by name in the song. And those kind of lyrics pop up here and there throughout this album. A lot of self-introspective lyrics. That seems to be the theme of this album. But yeah, Breaking the Back of Love, great, like 1-2 punch to kick off this album. My White Devil is after that, slows down things a little bit. And then we get to the first song that I'm not really crazy about. I like the music a lot, but I think the vocals are a little too upfront. They don't mix well with the music. And it, of course, you know, is one of the longer songs on here. It goes on for 6 minutes. The title track is kind of like two completely different feels in the same song. You've got it kind of starting off slower and more like dreamy, and just kind of like you're kind of wowed by all the, you know, the different sounds going on, and you're kind of lost in this aural kind of garden of sounds. And then there's a definite tape edit where it goes into this more up-tempo thing. I wish they would have made that a little smoother. You can tell that they just spliced that, and it comes off as a little rough, which rough is great sometimes, you know, raw, jagged edge, whatever you want to call it. But I think for that particular song, it would have worked better if they would have just sort of smoothed that out and done that live. And it would have been more impressive, too, to pull that off as a band, able to go from one texture of the song to the next kind of seamlessly. Ripeness later on is a song that definitely has that U2 guitar sound, you know, that really fast picking there with the chords. And again, I don't know if it's U2 sounding like Echo and the Bunnymen or Echo and the Bunnymen sounding like U2, but it definitely sounds like that. That pops up in other songs along the way, but in Ripeness is the one that I would spotlight as like, that's the one with the U2 guitar. Or, again, I don't know, maybe it's the Echo and the Bunnymen guitar and U2 picked up on it. But final track on here called Fuel is completely different, and gets more into a, you know, keyboard rhythm kind of thing, the drum beats and whatever from, you know, synths, and just kind of mellows the thing out and brings it to like this, like, kind of like, you know, soft landing, as it were. So overall, a really interesting album. There's a couple of tracks, of course, that I would skip over. But especially that really strong beginning with those first couple of tracks, and then even My White Devil is great. Lyrics are interesting throughout. It's not all self-inspection. It's also somewhat political in some songs. Nothing just completely banal, though. I mean, you don't have that with Echo and the Bunnymen, at least. So overall, I will give it 4 stars. It is Porcupine from Echo and the Bunnymen. I believe this is their 3rd album. It was February 8th, 1983, when the Kihn Band released the album Conspiracy, keeping with the tradition of all the puns based on his last name, Kihn, like Continued and Contagious and next of kin. This one is Conspiracy. This one is the one that contains the big hit, Jeopardy, and that actually kicks off the album. Jeopardy used to get played all the time on the radio, all the time on the video shows. But yeah, that's a great song. This whole album is full of just pretty cool, down the middle of the road, basic rock pop stuff. A little bit of power pop kind of sound thrown in a few places. But overall, it has a very basic rock pop early 80s sound. Not the keyboards, not the drum machines, nothing like that. Just your basic rock and roll band doing it in 1983. And that's one of the things. It becomes a little bit too middle of the road sometimes, a little bit too generic, especially on side 2, but it starts off really strong, obviously, with the song Jeopardy. Great song, follows that up, nice up-tempo stuff, a 1-2 punch with the next track called Fascination. It's got a nice tune on here, Talking to Myself, really cool, very up-tempo, kind of blues rocker, called Can't Love Them All, and that's side 1. So side 1's actually pretty strong stuff. It starts to kind of get a little more forgettable with side 2 and some of the tracks, especially the song that kicks off side 2. They do a cover of the Patsy Cline song, I Fall to Pieces. No reason to do that. Let's agree we need to leave that to Patsy Cline. So yeah, I mean, it's a great album to have around, to throw on every once in a great while. It's nothing that's going to blow you away. No great, big, you know, huge, innovative stuff going on here. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel. There's no big, you know, key changes or you know, time signature, you know, ingenious kind of stuff. This is your basic rock pop material for the early 80s. But some of it's pretty cool. Some of it kind of forgettable, especially on side 2. They tried for another single from this called Love Never Dies. That's a very final track on the album. And that one's super forgettable. I don't know, out of all the songs on here from side 1 they could have done, that they chose that as one of the singles, but it didn't go anywhere. So I think basically what you need is a nice Kihn Band compilation. Maybe a nice long one that fills up a CD with like 18 songs. Kihn Band kind of known as a one-hit wonder with Jeopardy, but to be fair, they are a 2-hit wonder because they got that awesome song called The Breakup Song, which was kind of a mid-level hit as well. Love that song. That song is not on here. So you need a good compilation of Greg Kihn Band. You don't necessarily need the individual albums unless you were just absolutely blown away by that band for some reason. But to me, sounds pretty cool. I'm going to give it 3 stars because it's pretty good, you know, but it's nothing that's blowing me away. I love hearing the song Jeopardy again after all these years. It used to get played all the time, like I said, but haven't really heard it a lot in the last few years, so it was nice to hear that again. But the breakup song, love that one, but not on this album. It's on one of those other Kihn pun title Greg Kihn Band albums. Confusion is Sex, or at least that is the title of the debut album from Sonic Youth, released at this time in February of 1983. And this is quite a different sound, especially when you're doing a deep dive into a specific year like 1983. You really get more of an appreciation for just how different some of these bands were. I mean, when you're listening to this and you got a bunch of 90s CDs or 2000 albums going on and you got slip in the debut from Sonic Youth, it'd be like, all right, what? But when you listen to this with all of these other albums from 1983, it's like, yeah, this was completely different, this whole sound. It is definitely not for everyone, but I got some things out of it. It didn't all work for me. Some of it was great, some of it was not, some of it was just meh. Very first track, when they've got that unique guitar sound that they do by like the strange tuning and the putting like objects in the strings and things that they used to do, that is you know, obviously gonna stand out. And so the first track right off the bat, you realize that this is not gonna be your ordinary 1983 synth pop album. First track is called She's in a Bad Mood. This song will certainly put some people in a bad mood, like what the hell is this? But I think it does have a certain atmosphere to it. It reminds me almost of like some psych rock type of thing because it's just so out there. Thurston Moore keeps the vocals down, which I think that's where he should be. I'm not a fan of the yelling and just that comes later with it just sounds obnoxious almost. Protect Me You follows that, this just droning with Kim Gordon doing the vocals on that. I like the songs where she does the vocals a lot more than the Thurston Moore ones. I think her sort of breathy, I think her sort of pleasant female vocal contradicts with the sort of grinding, grating music, and I think that works a lot better than Thurston Moore's just basic vocal or his yelling that comes later. You got this song called Freezer Burn that kind of locks you into this sort of trance type of thing with this droning sound. You're getting into it. You know, you're kind of getting, you're riding along with this sort of wave of just this monotonous sound, and then bam, you get a jump scare into a cover of the Stooges' I Want to Be Your Dog that sounds like it was recorded in like some club with like a cassette deck or something like that, with again Kim Gordon on the vocals of that. So yeah, some of this works for me, some of it does not. When you get to the title track, Confusion Is Next, where it's just Thurston Moore screaming, it sort of sounds like a bad Velvet Underground song, where there's just confusion is next, and then after that you get the truth, and after that you get reality, and it doesn't work for me. Neither does the next one where it's Kim Gordon doing the screaming with a something nature in the title. I don't remember, but it's not. Some of it works, some of it doesn't, and more side one works for me than side two. So overall, very uneven, but that's what you can expect with Sonic Youth. They're not going to be conventional, well, until like the 90s when they basically just do basic alternative rock and then just put a layer of noise over the top of it. But other than that, the early stuff, you're not going to get convention, you're not going to get evenness, you're going to get jarring kind of things, you're going to get screaming, you're going to get a literal jump scare. So overall, to kind of average everything out, I'm going to give this 3 stars because it is quite different, it is quite innovative. So yeah, I don't enjoy all the Sonic Youth. They definitely have bigger fans than me, but Confusion Is Sex is interesting, you know, in parts, and it does draw you in on a few songs. So 3 stars for this one, and that's going to wrap up the first part of February 1983. Won't you please join me for the next video? We'll do the middle part of February 1983 because these are all chronological by release dates. I'm going to talk about albums from people like Marty Balin, Molly Hatchet, Bow Wow Wow is in there. So are Ramones. And I will talk about a band, an album that I had no idea about them at all. I heard this. They are from South London. I was blown away and immediately gave it 5 stars. That is all coming up in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching this one and continuing me on my deep dive chronologically in the year 1983. I'm Robert Fithen. Hopefully I will talk to you again next time.